Thank you. Hi, I'm Hazel. Thank you for coming, everyone, today. Probably a lot of people think Chinese minority, oh, that's something not related to me. So, but in fact, it is. If an organization, you are providing services for people that is neurodiverse, then if you do not have any minority that in your group, then maybe that is something that you have to question, I think, personally, because Chinese population in UK, in Wales, is huge. And we know that autism is not only in certain colors of people. It is a condition that across any nationality, any races, or any age. So I start with a bit of my personal story. So my son is autistic, and later on that we found out that my husband is autistic as well. So when I first got to know about autism, I did not relate autism and the word in Chinese autism together, because the autism that I know is very different from what the real autism is. So you probably don't understand what I say now, but you will understand it a bit later. And then after my son got diagnosed, I feel very helpless that I don't know how to support him. Eventually, after a few years, I went to Swansea University to do a bit of research. So I do a master in autism. That is the time then I feel a bit stronger, that I want to see if I can find some friends, some Chinese people that is also having similar issues, that maybe we can, meet up and talk about it. But I can't find any single Chinese family that has got people living with autism. So that's where I start. So I went to Swansea Chinese Community Centre. I thought that might be a good start, a place that good start. I can find some Chinese families. So I dropped into a Chinese community centre. I said, oh, hi. I introduced myself, and straight away I asked, do you have any families that you know that is having anyone that in the family that is autistic? Quickly, everyone that in that place, their face changed, and then they asked me to leave. They don't want to talk about it, and they are not used to talk about it. It's something that as a Chinese, that we don't normally talk about. So that is the start. So I thought, oh, that is wrong. I feel it's wrong because I feel quite isolated myself, and I thought, where are these people? They must be somewhere. So that was the very, very initial of my journey. So now I am working for this same Chinese community center, Chinese Immune Association. So gradually, I keep knocking at their door, I keep going back, and then eventually after a few years that we have started a project. So because I told them that, your aim is to deliver the positive difference of life of ethnic Chinese minority. So, there's a group of people that you might not want to know, but they needed some support to change their life to become more positively. Okay, so the first project that we started is called Find Me Project, because we have this family, they have got children. I start with children because most of the Chinese people, they only just started to know about the condition now, the knowledge, so only if their children has been diagnosed. But after they have been diagnosed, what happened? They usually hide their children away because they don't want people to know. So I have got these families that I know quite a few years ago. She has got her son diagnosed, and she was quite sad, very, very sad. And she did not know who to tell to, so immediately she told her good friend, a Chinese friend. And she said, my son has got diagnosis of autism. So I started to tell her about how sad she was. Within a week, suddenly she found out that how come she lost almost all of her Chinese friends. So it's not just this family that she lost the entire Chinese community friends, because word spread, because Chinese community is small. So word spread. They still think, most of the Chinese families still think it's contagious, it's illness. So if my children play with your children, my children will get passed to my children. So this is what we are facing, the Chinese families. Not only the Chinese family that in China, but I'm talking about example that is in the UK. So it's in the city that is in Wales that is real case. So I started off this project called Find Me Project. So I think these children, maybe the parents, the families, they need a bit of more time to come to understanding. But how about these children? You know, time is ticking, and then, you know, they don't get the support they needed because they've been hid away, because the parent, they are in their denial. They're in their denial, and they almost want to tell people the opposite things. You know, my children is fine, and, you know, just keep lying about it. This is the face, this is the life they live in on a daily basis. So we start this Find Me project that I want to advocate for these children. So I go to talk to this family a lot, just to slowly help them, to hoping them can come out to join some activities, to learn a bit more about autism, so, you know, their perception can change, and also to meet other families, and then to access to some services that is available for them, because they have got language barrier, they have got this cultural stigma, which lead to only isolation. So they stay at home, you know, worry about this, and then keep lying themselves, and their well-being and mental health is strongly affected. So I mentioned earlier about few things. That is I'll give you some examples. So here we are. So how does this Chinese culture influence parents getting their an autism diagnosis for their children? So for the example that I mentioned to you earlier, is those family has already got diagnosis for their children. But we still have a lot of people, if they can avoid, if teachers went to them to want to discuss about their issues, their concern on the children, maybe to mention about, maybe, you know, we need to investigate a bit further, they usually refuse. So how does the Chinese culture that influence these parents? In Chinese, the name of autism is literally translated into self-closed disease. So we don't have a word like condition. No, it's a disease. So straight away, when we talk about autism, it's a disease. And that's why they relate it, it's contagious, you know, they still stay in that mindset. So, because this is named for a long time, so it's very, very hard for them to really break over unless they learn about autism from a different perspective. So our name is not helping at first instance. So it become gradually over 100 years, people, they don't want to talk about it. So it's just like my experience when I first went to, so when my son firstly got diagnosed, that word, autism, to me is like the word that I never heard of it before, because nobody in the family or friends in our Chinese community that talks about it. So it's like, so at first instance I'll think, oh, they must be very rare. And it's that, you know, it's I don't know what is it. It's blank. So I ask people, then people give me all the wrong information, different things about autism. So, and the culture value, because Chinese, we have this traditional moral perspective of Confucianism. It talks a lot about how you need to behave, how you need to behave properly, you know, you don't run away when you're outside, and also you need to have good manners. When you see somebody, you have to stay, look at look at the elderly, greet them, say hello, and then stay very still by the family. This is all our cultural value. So this is not helpful. So this is not helpful. So this is very, very, very difficult for, you know, we know, for neurodiverse people. So for family, for parents, they feel very stressful if their children cannot do that. So any challenging behavior, you know, presented by these children, so they can't change it, they become more. So the only thing they can do is to keep their children at home. So this is the only mechanism that, you know, they come up with. So as time goes, the stigma becomes stronger and stronger. So what we do now that I think is very, because the stigma is not something built up within a day or a week or 10 years, a decade, it's 100 years. So we have to start from telling people that, firstly, if I go out to talk in a Chinese place, the title is usually to say, autism is not a disease, to start with. People always argue with me, say, are you making sense of yourself? Because the Chinese word, is a disease. So this is what we are facing for Chinese community. So we all know it's very common, okay? If we're looking at the census that in 2011, this is very old. Of course, we are in 2019 now, but this is the only thing that I can get it now solidly. So at least we have about 5,000 Chinese in the UK that have the diagnosis, at least 500. But this number is not accurate for sure, because we know that in some other places, with as high as of 1 in 34 in New Jersey, and this is the statistic, the data in 2014. I was thinking maybe we have 1 in 20 in today's context. But then, I don't 5,000 Chinese that has got the diagnosis that in UK. We are still very much underdiagnosed, the Chinese, because of all the problems that I mentioned earlier. And also when we talk about Chinese, it's not only people from mainland Chinese, are carrying Chinese culture. I myself are from Malaysia, but I was brought up in the Chinese culture because my parents, they are Chinese. They're Chinese in maybe 20 years ago or even a bit longer ago. They have already scattered out to all different countries. So people that is Chinese, not only from migrants from China, that can be, in the UK, we have people from China, and they can be from different backgrounds. They are asylum seekers, they are students, they can be UK born, their family is here already, and then they are born here. But even though they are born here, they was educated in UK school, but their family culture, the Chinese culture, has influenced them a lot, especially with things that they don't learn in school. And also people that from Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam, they have a lot of Chinese population that in this country. So when we talk about Chinese in UK, they are people from China, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and this is all the Chinese that are carrying Chinese culture. Okay. So I really want to do a bit more. So, and I speak to a lot of people that that have shared a common passion with me. I look into different papers and to see what we can do, what hasn't been done. So, firstly, I think what we need to resolve the issue is to increase the awareness among service providers. I think maybe probably among all of you here and here that you probably are providing service to some Chinese families. So I think I'm hoping a lot more service providers, including teachers or health visitors or, family service, that will come to understand the barriers that we are facing, so that you know that it's not that you don't have this family that in your service because they don't exist, it's because they are hiding away. So I think I'm hoping that more people can. I have in Swansea, we have quite a close network, so they know what we are doing. So in Swansea, we go to different places to have meetings or even give talks and work closely with some local autism group that's very inclusive, that we hope more and more English people, local service provider, that can understand the barriers so that, we can be more supported. And also, I mentioned it earlier, the name of autism is being translated very misleadingly in Chinese. So that name has to be changed one day. But at the moment, I have come across many interpreters, Chinese interpreters, professional Chinese interpreters, because sometimes I go with family to sit on some panels, meetings, or school annual review. 99.5% of interpreters, they don't use correct terminology. We can't blame them, because if you get an interpreter, Chinese interpreter, to go to talk about to interpret a topic like this, a section like this, they are still carrying their culture values. They are still carrying their Chinese values because they do not have related knowledge. They do not understand autism. They still, the consultants say, okay, your son has just got diagnosed of autism, which is a condition that, but then straight away it will interpret into a disease. So the next thing that I think how we can resolve the issue is all UK, this is what I'm working on, but it's hard. So I go to different interpretation agencies. I write to them to say this is an issue that we need to really give different type of training. I send them a list of terminologies that maybe you can circulate to your interpreters. But every time I still meet a lot of interpreters, still 99.5%, they use the wrong terminology. So this is something that we need to change. So if you come across any opportunity that you need to use Chinese interpreter, by all means get in touch, okay? Or any interpreters that would like to know more about it, then by all means get in touch. And also we need some specialist multilingual advocacy service, so we can speak for this family, so people understand how many barriers they have, because that is something that they don't want to talk about. And to promote the correct understanding within our Chinese community, because the example I gave you earlier, that can be reduced. Hopefully, as they understand a bit more about autism, they will stop cutting off be friendly with this family. They will have to understand this is not contagious, and we can do more as a Chinese community, as a community to support each other. But again, this is not their fault, because this is what carry with them. So as I mentioned it earlier, so what is for professional needs to know and what is minority needs to be known? So essentially, the service provider, they need to know the stigma that we are facing and the importance of using adequate interpretation. And for the Chinese minority, they are still at the very, very basic. They need to know what is autism, because what they know is not autism. What they know is something else. It's not autism itself. And what is not autism? And also we tell, if you started to get concerned, how do you get a referral? So this is what we do now. Sorry. Press it too fast. Okay. 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 So later on we have another, I think there's one slide is missing. Okay, never mind. So with that few things in mind, so eventually I was managed to produce this booklet. It's a bilingual booklet that very simple booklet to tell what is autism and what is not autism, and also to talk a little bit about the cultural stigma that we face. And this is in 2 languages, literally translation. So if you want to tell somebody, number 10. So for example, if you want to tell somebody, number 1, autism is a disease. This is a myth. Okay, you can point it to a Chinese family to say, this is actually, it is not. It is not a disease, and it is not contagious. So this will be useful. I'm hoping it will be useful for people, service provider, to explain to Chinese family if you come across, or teachers for you to use for the parents. And later on, we also look into the mental health, the well-being of parents. Then we have created another project called Support Me Project. So we want to have a bit more people to come along together to support the families. So at the moment, that every week that in Swansea, that we have got a Chinese carer support group gathering. So in that support group, we hold lessons about autism, knowledge about autism, and we run workshops together. We sometimes invite people to come and talk to us, like, social worker, things like that, what can be useful to the carers. And I always make sure that we have got the adequate interpreters that is on site to make sure all the parents, carer understand what is being told. Okay, so for everyone that is on the spectrum that can be supported, that for the Chinese community, we don't only just need, we're not only just the Chinese community that can support, we need everybody to come and understand the barriers that we have at the moment, so that and then you can spread the word. So we have 10 here today, maybe, and we have 10 here today. If you go and tell another 5 friends about it, then maybe, more and more people would know. And hopefully more Chinese people, Chinese family, they can start to really, rethink about autism and then come forward to want to know more so that their children can get supported. Yeah. So by all means, if you want to get in touch, please write to me. At the moment that we are based in Swansea, but I'm happy to come to you if you are in other part of Wales or even UK, I don't mind. As long as, we can work these things out together. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any questions that you would like to ask anyone, please do. Yes.
Autism that they feel they can't talk about, or is it obviously other health conditions or disabilities?
Very good question. They are so physical disability or physical illnesses like like cancer or anything is much easier to talk about than autism, learning difficulties, or anything that, because there is almost like a taboo that we don't talk about. So they do not know much about it. They just think that is something that is very, very bad. It's a shameful things that happen in the family. So at the first moment when mom was told that your son is diagnosed with autism, first thing there will be self-blame. And then thinks that, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong myself, or what have I done wrong in the past life? Yeah, it's still, it is. It's not something, it's quite outdated. Chinese people still think that. So they blame themselves for a long time. Yeah, so they'll...
To you, like the newer generations, is it getting easier or not?
I think it's getting easier to speak to.
Right.
I have to say it's getting easier to speak to them. But if you don't speak to them, they still carry that value, that carry that mindset, because that is what their parents told them. Because if they do something wrong at home, or they see somebody, they will say, oh, make sure that you don't do something bad, otherwise your children will get that, this is what they will tell children, yeah. But it's easier to communicate with them, younger generation. I have got this young volunteer today, Ivy. she came with me today. So before she never heard, she heard about autism, but she always thinks that, is something that you can see. But then to talk to her is much easier than I talk to other parents or, people that is older in the Chinese community. Oh, cool. Yeah. So is there any other questions?
Have you done any work with adults
Hmm.
in the Chinese community?
Yeah. So, yeah. So my journey started with knowing that my son is autistic. And also later on, I mentioned it earlier, that then we found out my husband, he is also autistic. Yeah, he has his difficulties is much more than my son, because he has got this very, very bad anxiety. So that has stopped him from doing a lot of things. So he has not been working for over decades, because every time he come across to other people, that make him feel very anxious. So simple as, but we have good arrangement at home. So I go out to work, so he do school runs, and he's a good cook. So he's at home and I'm outside. So simple things that, if he's doing school run, he go to school every day, same path, right? Same path, routine. But if he come across somebody that from the front, that, opposite, he doesn't know, then he will say, okay, let's turn back. everyone, I've got 3 children, everyone have to turn back to go home to wait for a bit until that he thinks that one people is gone, then, or he take another route, we can go across the road to take another route to school. So it's as bad as that. So what we, to answer your question, because most Chinese people still think it is a disease, so I find all my best to cure my child, and then eventually he will outgrow it. So they don't think it's a lifelong condition. They don't know it's a lifelong condition. They think autism is only on the children. So in the UK, I would say there is the people that I know, even though I see them, I know they are autistic, but I can't tell them because they will really get offended. I have only one success case. There's this man. He is in his late 30s, so we have a lot of chat. He came to see me because of his son, because school said, his son is this and that, but he don't think it is, so he come to speak to me. When I explained to him about autism, and then he sit there for 2 hours, we talk about it, and then he said to me, whatever you said, that was me. He came to see about his son, but then he realized, so unless somebody is come with that open-minded mind, and he's really listening, sit down, have that space for him to listen, otherwise it's very difficult. So gradually there is another thing that I want to do, that by increasing of awareness that within the Chinese community, hopefully people will start to see their struggles is actually not their fault, it's something else probably. Yeah, so we have things, so we have a lot of, because we gather every week together, so the lesson is sometimes geared towards these people, because we have got parents that in our group, they are possibly autistic themselves. So sometimes they will come and tell me about their husband. So those classes is a start for everybody to come together to know a bit more, and then to let them think a bit further. Yeah. Is there any question? No? So, okay, thank you very much.